Suggestions for Students of Psychology. Part 4. Study of Objective Mental Phenomena. 1. Study of objective mental phenomena. Having derived from the study of subjective phenomenon a knowledge of the mind itself, let us turn to the consideration of those objective phenomena by means of which mental activities are expressed. Our only means of knowing other minds is to study the objective phenomenon which they produce. In the light of a knowledge of the mind already acquired through study of the subjective phenomenon of our own minds. We have divided objective mental phenomenon into two classes, viz., the psychological changes which accompany mental activities and the expressions of thoughts, emotions, and volitions. Psychological phenomena. We have observed that the mind acts through the agency of the forces resident in the electronervous fluid in the body. It has been proved that certain physical conditions accompany certain mental states. For instance, positive emotions are always accompanied by an increase in the supply of the electronervous fluid and greater activity of the vital forces. Negative emotions tend to disturb the electronervous fluid and to interfere with the activity of the vital forces. Furthermore, the comparative development of different mental powers is indicated by the development and formation of the physical organs through which they act. This is particularly noticeable in the formation of the head, which indicates the development of the different brain centers in the formation of the features through which thought and emotion are so largely expressed, and in the formation of the hand through which most of the volitions are carried out. A knowledge of the brain and nerves as the agents of the mind is termed neurology. A knowledge of the formation of the head as expressing mental inclinations is called phrenology. A knowledge of the formation of the features as expressing mental inclinations is called physiognomy. A knowledge of the formation of the hand as expressing mental inclinations is called chiaroscopy. Each of these departments of knowledge is a science in itself. It will be seen that none of them deal with the mind itself, but only with its agents and instruments. Such knowledge is an important adjunct to psychology, but it is entirely subordinate and must be understood in the light of a knowledge of the mind derived from self-study. 2. Health and disease. When the nerve centers are well stored with electronervous fluid and it circulates freely throughout the entire organism, the vital forces direct in a normal manner the organic functions of the body and serve the mind freely in the expression of its thoughts, emotions, and volitions. This is the natural condition of the body and is called a state of health. When the free circulation of the electronervous fluid is impeded and the vital forces thrown out of equilibrium, the normal activity of the vital organs is suspended, and the forces of the body no longer serve the intelligence of the mind. Then the body is said to be in a state of disease. The laws of health. The requirements for health are as follows. 1. The body must be supplied with sufficient and suitable nourishment. The material substances which it consumes are used to rebuild wasted tissues, are transmuted into the comparatively spiritual substance through which the mind acts in the body and maintains its connection therewith. 2. The body must be protected from extremes of temperature and all physical conditions which would be likely to interfere with the activity of the vital forces. 3. A perfect balance must be maintained between the supply and expenditure of vital forces by observation of the law of rhythm, alternate action, and rest. 4. The mind must be trained to entertain only such thoughts as may be the occasions of positive emotions and benevolent affections. These mental states, as we have seen, are conducive to increased supply and free circulation of the electronervous fluid and natural vigorous activity of the vital forces. The cause of disease. The immediate cause of disease is always a disturbance of the vital forces. Any violation of the laws of health may be the occasion of disease, viz. 1. Lack of sufficient and suitable nourishment. 2. Exposure to extremes of temperature and unsanitary conditions. 3. Lack of balance between supply and expenditure of vital forces. Overwork or lack of proper exercise. 4. Malevolent mental conditions. All diseases take their name and nature from the part of the body which they happen to attack. If the vital forces are thrown out of equilibrium, the confusion which arises occasions in the mind a consciousness of pain, which is conceived to be located in that part of the body where the confusion exists, although it is purely a mental state. In this manner, we are made aware that there is some disturbance in the body which demands our attention. If we do not heed the warning, congestion of tissues and suspension of organic function is likely to ensue. If the heart is affected by the disturbance, we call the condition heart disease. If the lungs are affected, we call it lung trouble. If the liver is affected, we call it liver complaint. Each of these diseases has its scientific name and is different from the others as the organ is different. But the cause of all is the same, viz., a disturbance of the vital forces. From the foregoing, it will be seen that either mental or physical conditions may be the occasion of disease. Undue attention is usually given to the physical occasions, while malevolent mental states are allowed to continue to adversely influence bodily conditions. It is of great importance that we should understand the power of positive emotions and benevolent affections to maintain health, and that of negative emotions and malevolent affections to occasion disease. The principles of healing. The vital forces having been thrown out of balance, the restoration of their normal equilibrium is called healing. Experiment has proved that certain material substances have properties which cause them to so influence the substance of the body as to remove impediments to the free circulation of electronervous fluid, or to directly influence the electronervous fluid itself, stimulating the vital forces, and so enabling them to overcome the conditions which interfere with their activity. Upon this principle is founded medical science. We have seen that positive emotions and benevolent affections and the thoughts which occasion them have the power to stimulate the vital forces and to increase the supply of the electronervous fluid, so that the conditions which interfere with their free circulation and normal activity may be dissolved. Upon this principle is founded all systems of mental and spiritual healing. Health is the natural condition of the body, and it is the nature of the electronervous fluid to circulate freely and of the vital forces to act normally if the laws of health are observed. They will always strive to overcome any impediment and to react from any condition of confusion to their natural harmony. All that medical or mental therapies can do is to aid this inherent healing power in its work. In all cases, it is this law of nature which heals, and as we have seen, the occasion of its activity may be either mental or physical. 3. Expression of thought. Thought is expressed by means of a system of symbols used singly to represent simple ideas and combined to represent complex ideas or thoughts. The use of these symbols to express ideas and thoughts is called language. A symbol which represents a simple idea is called a word. A combination of words used to represent a complex idea or thought is called a sentence. Language is primarily oral. A word consists of a combination of sounds used as the symbol of a certain idea. Man has invented a system of visible symbols which represent the different sounds used in the construction of words. These visible symbols are called letters. A written word is a combination of letters representing, in the order of their pronunciation, the sounds used in the construction of the spoken word. Thus, by means of oral and written language, we communicate our thoughts to other minds and preserve them in objective form. Manual language. For the use of those who have been deprived of the sense of hearing and so cannot communicate with others by means of oral language, a system of manual symbols has been devised. In this system, each letter of the alphabet is represented by a position of the hand. Ideas and thoughts are thus expressed by combining these positions of the hand. This method of communication is called manual language. Next to the voice, the hand is the most perfect agent of expression, and all persons naturally employ its positions and movements to express their thoughts to a greater or less degree. 4. Expression of emotion. Emotions are expressed by the attitude and movements of the entire body, by the movements of the facial muscles, and by the modulations of the voice in speaking. Vital attitude and upward movements express positive emotions. Drooping attitude and downward movements express negative emotions. Slow, graceful movements indicate ease and dignity and an inclination toward positive emotions. Rapid angular movements indicate excitement and an inclination toward negative emotions. Relaxation and upward movement of the facial muscles express positive emotions. Contraction and downward movement of the facial muscles express negative emotions. Rising inflection of the voice in speaking expresses positive emotions. Falling inflection of the voice in speaking expresses negative emotions. Slow speech and gradual changes in tone denote ease and dignity and an inclination toward positive emotions. Rapid speech and quick changes in tone denote excitement and an inclination toward negative emotions. 5. Expression of volitions. Volitions are expressed in actions, i.e., in the changes which the individual produces in the environment and his relation to it. Actions are the final expression of all mental states. There can be no action without choice, no choice without feeling, no feeling without thinking. Hence, the thoughts, emotions, and volitions of the mind are all expressed in actions. Although emotions are more directly expressed in the movements of the body and modulations of the voice and thoughts in language. Interpretation of expression. Having considered ourselves as beings possessing the powers called intellect, sensibility, and will, and as producing the phenomenon which express the activity of these powers, we infer when we observe in our environment phenomenon similar to those which we produce that they are caused by similar beings possessing similar powers. When we behold a mass of substance like our own bodies, animated by an active power, we infer that power to be like that which animates our own bodies. Hence, we call it a human being. When a being produces oral or written symbols, we infer that they express ideas and thoughts, and that therefore the being possesses intellect. When a being causes its body to move in a manner which we ourselves employ to express our emotions, and we notice modulations in the vocal sounds it produces, we infer that these movements and modulations express emotions, and that therefore the being possesses sensibility. When a being produces changes in its environment and its relation to it, we infer that these changes express volitions and that therefore the being possesses will. When a being expresses the activity of intellect, sensibility, and will, we consider it to be like ourselves, a spiritual being or soul possessing these mental powers. All that we can know of other beings is to be derived from observations of their speech, presence, and actions, considered in the light of a knowledge of the soul and mind derived from self-study. For instance, we observe that a child runs after a man and gives him a rose. We know that the act is an expression of a volition. The child chose to give the rose to the man and directed the forces of his body to transfer the object from his own to the man's hand. This choice was occasioned by some emotion or affection. Knowing that to part with a beautiful thing and bestow it upon another is the expression of a benevolent affection, we conclude that the child feels such an affection toward the man. The feeling must have been the result of thought. The child must have compared his idea of this man with his ideas of others favorably, or he would not feel sufficient affection for this man to give him the rose rather than another. Also, he must have exercised the power of imagination to combine the ideas of the man and the rose, and found the combination of those ideas pleasant, so that he caused the forces of his body to produce the change which he had imagined. In this way, judging the actions of others by our knowledge of the mental activities which lead us to perform similar acts, we are enabled to understand them. End of part 4.